Hi, and welcome to the Fourth U Dimension podcast, slash, in this case, a special YouTube video as well. This is a production of the Fourth Universalist Society in the city of New York. My name is Imber Kelly, and I am the Director of Religious Education here at Fourth Universalist Society. This video slash podcast is part of our special series that we call the Getting the Message series. As I like to say, this is a reflection on the reflections, where we take the message from Sunday and we kind of dive a little bit deeper into looking at it. This week's message is entitled Earth-Centered Spirituality in the Time of a Pandemic. It was delivered by Reverend Schuyler Vogel on December 6th. If you are joining us on YouTube, perhaps you had the chance to watch the video that has been posted previously. We are joined by our special guest, Reverend Schuyler Vogel, who is joining us live from the Fourth Universalist Sanctuary.
Thanks for having me, Ember. It's fun to be back here in the space.
Right? I feel like it gives it a special touch for this video.
Yeah, I'm back in the pulpit for the first time since March. It's right here. I got my computer set up. It looks just like my home, except we're here. So we got the poinsettias here as if we were here. You know, we're trying to be festive, even in absence.
Yes, perhaps it fits with the theme of the day, since being in a special space is really a way to kind of be grounded.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, one of the ways that we stay grounded, I think, for the seasons, like I spoke about in the sermon, is trying to make our sacred sanctuary space reflect the world outside. So, you know, the holiday decorations, we have wreaths, we have Christmas lights that are under here that I can't pull. They're not quite long enough, but they're all over. They're bright and they're shining to make us feel like when we enter this space, it reflects the world outside and lets us experience the joy and the meaning and the fulfillment of the unique season that only comes around once a year.
Right. I think this time has definitely made us really appreciate how space can be special to us, and I think we all do look forward to the future of being back in there all together again. So one of the first things that came to my mind as I was listening to this message was I thought it would be fun to at least briefly talk about our shared seminary experiences. For those who don't know, I've also completed a Master's of Divinity in seminary, and so Schuyler and I share a similar background on that level of finishing that very fun degree. So I really appreciated you talking about not quite fitting in a specific box, even in the UU, that there is like these boxes that people perhaps, oh, like I'm this type of UU, I'm this type, and I think even though I was at Chicago Seminary, which is very progressive, it was still like, well, Ember, where do you fall on this thing? So you had to like find your right place. So that really resonated with me, like trying to find the path that made sense for you during seminary.
Yeah, you know, it was tough because there's a lot of good reasons for why they want seminarians and ministers to have a clear theological perspective. I think it's because they want folks to be self-aware and to understand the roots of their theology, so that they can articulate some more comprehensive path or self-awareness about their own journey to folks when they come out and become ministers. But the challenge for me was always that I kind of liked everything, and I didn't like the idea of being nailed down to something. I could have potentially been all those things together, but probably not one exclusively. And there are definitely colleagues of mine who are very explicitly Christian Unitarian Universalists or humanist UUs. And for me, the part of the joy of Unitarian Universalism is that we get everything all together, and that you don't necessarily have to choose, and that you can, one night read from the Liturgy of Hours of the Catholic Church, and then wake up in the morning and practice yoga, and that is part of the beauty of it. So part of my, I think, coming to learn about myself through the pandemic was coming to a realization that there's this one that is particularly meaningful. Not that the others aren't, but that in this moment in time, especially, this connection to the natural world, to the seasons, to the stars and the moon, really is providing me with a way of being grounded in a way that I didn't expect, and that is helping me really just stay spiritually together during all this.
Right, grounding in this challenging moment. I think, as you were both there and in the message talking about this journey for you, it really resonates for me as somebody who uh, I think perhaps others in my life have, kind of thought that I was a little wishy-washy, jumping from denomination to denomination. For those who don't know, I've jumped to about 10 different Christian denominations, and then now I'm in the UU. So just keep on jumping around. And so some people view that as very wishy-washy sort of thing. But I think that there's a real power in it, like in admitting that we can have these journeys to discover meaning, and then also that there is power in claiming like something once you've spent so long to really discover its meaning to you. In this case, claiming that you're finding this richness in earth-centered spirituality. I've been on a very similar journey. That there there is power both in being able to admit to the journey and treasuring the journey and seeing the journey as a life value. But I think that there's also real value in being able to say, yeah, this is something that I enjoy.
That's right. That's right. I think the linchpin for me is this idea of uh, theological freedom, that Unitarian Universalists are free to follow their own path, to explore different traditions, to follow their own heart and their own integrity and their own sense of the world. That they're free to do that, and they're not trapped in their parents' religion or their community's perspectives, but they're able to say and ask, what is resonating, what's speaking to me. We do that with our kids in religious education, as you know, Ember. We encourage them to find the spark within their own heart rather than implant truths onto them, because in Unitarian Universalism we're free to do that. And I think we can choose. The freedom to choose is so vital, right? Because we're not just free to meander inevitably into forever without making a decision or choice. We can continue to find freedom and joy in the diversity of religious experiences out there, but we also have the freedom to choose, and that choice is also very powerful because we can decide that this is a tradition that speaks particularly to me. I think it also is important to just make a sort of a little note here that Unitarian Universalists, when we talk about freedom to choose, we're not suggesting that just because someone likes a religion, they can just automatically claim it as their own. There's Unitarian Universalism has a history of what I think you could call spiritual colonialism, where we like Hinduism and we took a class and read a book about Hinduism, so now I can be Hindu. We're not saying that. That's not what I'm saying. In order to be part of a religious tradition, you have to really understand it, study it, be engaged in meaningful relationships with those people who practice it. But I do think that there is the fundamental lesson that there is truth and wisdom and a path to a meaningful life through a multitude of religious traditions and experiences is incredibly liberating for Unitarians, Universalists.
Well, I am going to withhold myself from the temptation of taking this entirely in the religious colonialism direction, and I will promise everybody listening and watching that in the future, Reverend Schuyler and I will make this into like an educational dialogue for an event, because this sounds like a topic that we could easily spend like a full hour and a half talking about instead of just podcast length. Um, but I think as you were saying some of that, and as you were talking about the UU values, I know when I was younger in my early 20s versus my wise 30s now, and I like to say that I was a theological jerk. Like I thought that I knew all the right ways, and that everybody else, raised in this evangelical world, everybody else was a heretic. They were all wrong and evil, and I always like joked about that these like universalist churches, or these anything that wasn't like an explicitly like Christian thing, like why do they even meet, like what's the point? And it's been such a journey for me that now at this point in my life I see so much value in like having this community that embraces so many different perspectives and has people that comes from all walks of life. And I can learn so much like interacting with all these different people. Like even though I've only been here for 5 months now at this point, which, whew, 5 months. Um, but at the same time, like I feel like I've just had such a rich growth of getting to appreciate journeying alongside others since I've joined with Fourth.
Yeah, I think that diversity. I'm so glad to hear that, Ember, that you're having a good experience. That it doesn't feel it doesn't feel like the spiritual life of the congregation is a mile long and inch deep, as sometimes Unitarian Universalists are accused of in relation to other religions that are maybe much deeper but a little bit thinner because they're just them. So I'm really glad that you're enjoying it and finding that it's meaningful to have the diversity of thoughts and opinions, because I think that is one of the benefits that we get when we join UU communities, is you don't really know who's going to be sitting next to you. And the holidays are a fascinating example of this. Obviously this congregation has Christmas as part of one of the things that it does, but we're also a congregation that has a Passover Seder every year, and we have Muslim Unitarian Universalists in our congregation, and those who come out of Hindu backgrounds and Buddhists, and to have that diversity and to be able to learn from each other about the traditions that everyone brings, I think is pretty special, and I think particularly for people who are interested in learning and living a life of learning, there's no better place to do that religiously than UU spaces.
Really. So switching gears back up to the earth-centered part of the message, um, both as I reflected on in my time for all ages, and as you mentioned in the service, one of the beauties of this is realizing like the much more cyclical nature of time. I know that's been powerful for me. Would you want to maybe elaborate on like how that journey has been for you to like realize and appreciate the cycles of life?
Yeah, I find it very comforting to know that there is always another cycle coming through, another season coming up, another period of the calendar. Uh, there's certainty with that in a world that's very uncertain. There's familiarity with that. One of the things we've done, Ember, as you know, we've started putting together seasonal playlists that are centered so far around holidays, but it could also be seasonally based. And part of what my hope is that in creating those is that we're able to return to those every single year. It's the same with Christmas music. We love that. We're able to return to this way of being during a certain period of the year, so that no period of the year feels flat, that we're never left without resources, we're never left without guidance about how to be. I think we can we can live within the spirit of the calendar year, within these cycles, so that the things we think about, the things we focus on, the way the different color and atmosphere of our lives shifts depending on if it's December versus if it's September. And I think that's a powerful thing. And then we can learn to appreciate it. We can learn to really love that and have like the same way that Christians love Christmas, and then move on to something else before it becomes stale, knowing that we're going to return to that eventually again, but we don't have to live there entirely. And so we can move on to a quieter form of winter after the holidays are over that focuses more on hibernation rather than celebration. And from there we move on to spring and this idea of life being planted and becoming the new life that is in Christian terms the resurrection, and in pagan terms this idea of the seeds kind of getting ready to come up and spring into action. So those cycles, we can cherish them because they're always there for us, and there's always another one that's coming up. I'm curious about you, Ember, because you said it was something that spoke to you as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think it also speaks to this moment of Corona too. That we feel like things have taken a real turn for the worse, but like if we remember that, our life really has these cycles of like sometimes things do get a little bit rough, but then the waves of life. I mean, it's been a real journey for me as I talked about in the Time for All Ages. One of the things I've really learned to appreciate has been like the moon cycles, and like I found this author named Ezzy Spencer, and she has like uh, different like themes for each of the moon phases, and so I use those to then like translate into journal prompts for myself around like a given intention or something like that. And it's just really a wonderful practice to like get to like come up with an intention and sit with that intention for a cycle and think about like what work I'm doing on that. It really, I mean, it helps with goal setting as well. I don't want to like turn myself into like the self-help inspirational here, but at the same time, like working on an intention in your life on this cyclical basis then gets you better at like thinking about how to set goals, but like how to take them piece by piece, because you realize that you can't get everything done all at once when you're running on this cycle. You need to take the downtime, the rest time. And I think as I already said, with everything with Corona, every right now all these messages are talking about like that this is the darkest winter. And if somebody is listening to this in April or May, please comment and let us know how this sounds, after you're out of the winter. But right now they're talking about that this is going to be the darkest winter of our lives for people living in the United States. And like that sounds a little foreboding, but like having really embraced the cycles, then I remember like, hey, spring will come. Like it's gonna suck, but like there is spring coming, there is summer coming. Like it won't be winter for forever. Even as they talk about the darkest winter ever coming.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. There's always another season, and there's a whole way of being in winter, right? The spirit of winter is can be can be nesting, can be hibernating, can be interiority, right? And that is actually perfect for a season when we need to do all those things, both to be safe but also to protect others. And in a hard winter like this, there's a spirit of winter that we can live into and live out of that gives our life additional meaning if we embrace it rather than fight it. Because this is going to be tough. It's going to be tough, but the history of winter and what winter is across cultures and across time and even across species is something that can give us spiritual tools to get through this harder winter intact and safe and healthy. And I think that's something that Earth traditions can really help us with.
And I think that is an excellent place to end us for the day. So, Reverend Schuyler, thank you for joining us for the podcast once again on our 5th episode.
Thanks for having me, Ember. It's a delight. I really enjoy doing these.
And thank you to all of our listeners, whether on podcast or on YouTube. In typical YouTuber fashion, I'll say, leave a like, a comment, subscribe, let us know you're watching and enjoying these. It really means a lot to us as we produce them.